Hello, my name is Jennifer Gomez. I am a cyber threat intelligence analyst at Bechtel Corporation. Through my career as an analyst, I have mostly worked job fraud cases, but I've had the opportunity to work on some very interesting other types of fraud, such as romance fraud. So today I'm going to talk about romance fraud, and it's recently been gaining a lot of attention. It has a lot of people asking the question, what is romance fraud? Okay. Sorry. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey of romance fraud from beginning to end. We're going to discuss all the stages of the fraud, what preventative steps can be taken to avoid falling victim to romance fraud, and how romance fraud can affect your company's brand and reputation. So as I mentioned, there's been a lot of attention on romance fraud with documentaries popping up on several different networks, such as Netflix, Showtime, National Geographic, and that's just to name a few. There's several others out there. Some of them showcase in real life romance fraud where the target actually meets the fraudster in person. They build a relationship. Sometimes they even get engaged or get married. And the other type is where you get to take a look at the romance fraud from the mind of the criminal. Now on this slide, I've highlighted 3 of my favorite documentaries on romance fraud. If you haven't seen them, you should check them out. So I'd like to start with a definition. What is romance fraud? Romance fraud is a fraudulent scheme in which a threat actor pretends to have a romantic interest in a target, establishes a relationship, and then attempts to collect money or sensitive information from the target under false pretenses. So next, we're going to take a look at the FBI's Internet Crimes Annual Report data. As you can see here, this has grown significantly over the past few years, with 2021 accounting for just under $1 billion in financial loss, which is approximately $39,000 per individual. So as you can see, and this is just what's reported, because as with a lot of fraud, it's not always reported. Sometimes people are embarrassed or ashamed that they fell victim to the fraud, or they just think it's not going to matter anyhow. They're not going to get their money back, or it's not worth their time. But whatever the reason is that they don't report it, either way, these numbers are staggering. So next, we're going to take a look at the stages that I've identified in my investigations. So it starts with developing a persona, who they want to be this time, picking a career, creating their social media presence, selecting the images they want to use, and then they develop their story. Then they go live. They look for their target on social media sites, maybe dating sites, possibly looking for individuals with profiles that say that they're divorced or widowed. And once they identify their target, they send a message and they just wait for a response. Once they've connected, they try to get to know their victim. They want to learn as much as possible, retaining any information that can be leveraged later on. They try to start the relationship and build a trust with their victim. Then they tell their story, lie after lie, possibly a sob story about their family or losing their partner tragically, whatever they think will gain the sympathy of their victim. Once the relationship has been established and the trust has been established, the financial requests begin, and they're always extremely urgent. Usually they start small, and if their victim starts to make the payments, then they increase in value. And the actor will do whatever it takes to convince the victim to come up with this money. So the victim does whatever it takes to pull this money together to make these payments. And at some point, the victim does begin to doubt the requests being made. They start asking more and more questions. They start searching for answers, which usually will lead to the discovery of the fraud. So as I told you in the beginning, I'm going to take you on the journey of a romance fraud case from beginning to end. This is an investigation I recently worked, and it gave us a lot of information about how the fraud is carried out. It also shows us how quickly this type of fraud progresses, because it takes place within a time frame of just under 2 months. So now we're going to take a look at the involved parties. The actor was a wealthy American widower who was an engineer working on a project overseas. He claimed that he had 2 children still living in the US, but no other family. The victim was a recently divorced individual who was seeking a relationship online. So our story begins With a connection made on social media, the conversation begins with small talk. It's exactly what you would expect of two people who are just getting to know one another. However, the infatuation builds very quickly. And you start to see the actors saying things like, "I think you're the one for me," or that they hope that this develops into a serious relationship. Now, it only takes one day, but several hours of conversation, but just one day for the actor to claim to be falling in love with the victim. And the victim does seem very receptive to the actor's advances and compliments, but shows that they're a bit reserved and guarded because they don't want to be hurt again. The actor uses all of this information to further guide the conversation and gain the trust of their victim. So the conversation continues for a few more days. And at this point, they're both proclaiming their love for one another. They're discussing their future plans to be married, where they're going to live, what a wonderful life and a beautiful family they're going to have together. At one point, you see there's a shift in the conversation from mine to ours. And finally, they begin discussing sharing finances and who's going to pay the bills once they get married. Now, this is only day 2 of their conversations. A couple more days pass by, and you see another change in the conversation. The courtship phase has ended, and they now are in a full-blown relationship. And at this point, the two have only been talking for 4 days. Shortly thereafter, the first financial request comes in. And of course, it's extremely urgent. There's an emergency that requires a payment, and the actor is having banking issues. Now, remember, the actor is wealthy. However, the actor is having trouble accessing their funds because of the location that they're working on. The actor assures the victim the money would be paid back by the end of the month. This victim is not in a position to be helping out anyone financially, but the victim borrows money from family to make the payment. This continues on, and the financial requests come in, and each one is greater than the last. So you might ask yourself, how does this progress so quickly? How does this happen? Well, these actors are masters of their craft. They find ways to convince the victim how much adoration they have for them. They make them feel special and safe. They use endearing terms like honey, darling, my love, sweetie. They make them feel safe and secure. It's all part of their grooming process. Once they have their victim hooked, that's when the conversation begins to change and the actor shifts gears into the financial requests. Once the money starts coming in, a new urgent situation will arise every couple of days. When the victim does become suspicious or asks for something to reassure them that this is a legitimate relationship or a real person, the actor will provide family photos, pictures of themselves at work or at restaurants or even exploring in the country that they're working in, all in an attempt to prove to the victim that they are who they say they are. If the victim continues to be suspicious of the financial requests that are coming in or asks for some sort of tangible proof that some money is due, the actor will provide falsified documents or bills, whatever the victim is asking for, whatever it's going to take to continue this fraud. Finally, after almost 2 months, the victim began to investigate, calling all the places that the payments were going to, gathering as much information as possible, and finally reached out to our company to see if the actor was an employee working on a project. So once we confirmed that this was not an employee of our company, nor had they ever been, the realization set in for the victim that they had been defrauded. The embarrassment, there was fear and panic that now I'm going to be stuck with all of this debt. And it was really unfortunate for this victim because this victim did have the instinct to do research and investigate, but it just came too late. It was after the victim had already incurred a significant financial loss of tens of thousands of dollars. So most people think, I would never fall for this. It could never happen to me. Victim shaming happens all too often in this arena. But this victim did question everything. This victim appeared to be very intelligent and logical, asking all the right questions. But remember, this is what the actor does. They purposely seek out individuals who are emotionally vulnerable. They use a very high pressure tactic, matters of extreme urgency. If this payment isn't received, something catastrophic is going to happen. They don't give the victim time to think or make logical or informed decisions. It has to happen now. Another tactic used by the actor is guilt. If you don't make this payment and this catastrophic event happens, can you live with that? It'll be your fault. So with these different tactics, the actor is able to convince the victim over and over again to make the payments. The victim, as I said, was not in a financial position to help anyone out, but this victim borrowed money from family, took out bank loans, used money intended to pay their own bills and support their own family, all in order to pay the requests that were being made by the actor, all along going further and further into debt to help the person that they thought they loved, that they thought they were going to be married to, all with the assurance that they were going to be paid back. So next, we're going to talk about what the victim could have done to protect themselves before engaging with the actor. So put your dating cap on for a minute. Oops, I think I went too far. I lost my way. Okay, sorry about that. So put your dating cap on for a minute and ask yourself, what could I have done to protect myself in this situation? If the victim's social media accounts had stricter privacy settings, the actor would have had a more difficult time finding them on social media. The victim could have been more cautious about who they chose to connect to and could have done some research before engaging in conversation. Now, once they were connected, the victim could have continued with that guarded mindset and continued to do research as new information from the actor came in. There were several warning signs that at first the victim seemed to ignore. This was the perfect match, the perfect person in every way, shape, or form. And usually if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. They were unable to have phone or video conversations. Now, these were all explained away, but it was still suspicious and it was overlooked. But the biggest red flag of all was how quickly that this romance progressed, and also the financial requests coming in. The victim could have taken some of the images that were provided by the actor and done a quick Google image search and would have found that the images that were being provided were that of a public figure. Now, the victim did do this eventually. However, it was after the financial loss had already been incurred. So next, we're going to discuss the impact romance fraud can have on your company's brand and reputation. Why would the actor claim to work for a particular company? Why do we care, and what can we do about it? So we see quite a bit of romance fraud reported, and it's all by individuals who are inquiring about their friend. Does their friend work for our company? And the first question I hear is, why would somebody pretend to work for your company? Well, Bechtel's a reputable construction and engineering company with projects all over the world. So this makes it easy for the actor for a couple of reasons. First, it explains why they can't meet in person. It explains why they might be working on a remote project with spotty Wi-Fi, so they can't have FaceTime conversations. They don't have cell service, so they can't have phone conversations. And the second thing that it does is it provides the actor with a sense of stability and security, with a good career. And this is enticing to the victim. The victim, as I said before, was an emotionally vulnerable person who was looking for love. It's emotion over logic. So they're always going to be very enticing. So sometimes the actor would even provide falsified documents on company letterhead, counterfeit badges to prove that they worked for our company. Sometimes their social media profiles would indicate that they work for our company, or they might even provide an email address that's an impersonation email address. So what can be done? Once we verify that it is in fact fraud and this person was not an employee of our company, nor had they ever been, we instruct the victim to cease communications with them immediately. We tell them to report it to their local law enforcement if they feel that they've been a victim of a crime. And then we encourage them to file an internet crimes report with the FBI. And if they are unsure of how to do that, we would, in some instances, we would assist them with that. Then we gather as much information as we can to build our brand abuse case. We document all of our findings. We conduct research. We read through any conversations that are provided to us by the victim. We're always looking for a connection to our company. We search the actor's social media profiles. We do Google reverse image searches on the images that are provided. and look for any actionable items. And if there is actionable items, we work with a third-party company to disable the adversary infrastructure. So we're nearing the end here, and I wanted to cover just a couple of other things, the proactive measures that can be taken to protect your brand and why that's important. Impersonation of your brand can affect so many areas of your business, from business development to your industry reputation, which can affect winning contracts or bids, really can affect your revenue. And that's why it's imperative to protect your brand at all costs. So these are a couple of things that can be done to help with this effort. Create a group for this purpose. Identify a group of key players within your organization who can meet regularly to discuss fraudulent practices that are affecting your brand. It's a really good idea to ensure that this group is made up of members that have varying backgrounds. This way, each person can contribute by providing guidance and input in their area of expertise. Additionally, if at all possible, it's a good idea to allocate budget to outsource the monitoring and disabling of fraudulent infrastructure to a brand protection company. Brand protection companies can work to disable fake email addresses, remove your company's information from social media profiles. Sometimes they can even completely have social media profiles disabled. But brand protection companies do come in many different shapes and sizes, so you absolutely want to do your due diligence to ensure that you're picking the correct company that fits your needs. So the last thing that I wanted to cover was a couple of high-profile arrests that were made in 2021. Now, as we saw in the beginning of the presentation, the slide with the stats, this is an increasing problem. It's gained the attention of Hollywood with the documentaries, and it's also gained the attention of law enforcement. The first case I'd like to highlight was from September of 2021. 33 individuals were arrested across Texas. They were part of Black Axe, which is a transitional organized crime syndicate originating in Nigeria, but they operate worldwide. Authorities stated they engaged in a wide range of fraudulent schemes, such as business email compromise, investor scams, and unemployment insurance fraud, and online romance scams. There was $17 million in financial loss and over 100 victims. The second one I'd like to highlight happened a month later in October of 2021. 8 Nigerian men were arrested in a decade-long scam that swindled $7 million from their victims. This was also linked to the arrest made in September of 2021 and the Black Axe organized crime syndicate. So as we can see, this is a growing problem, but it is getting the attention of law enforcement, and there is action being taken. So as I'm closing out here, this slide I've provided links to some of the resources that I mentioned throughout the presentation. That's all I have for you today. I hope you have found this to be informative, interesting, and enjoyable. Are there any questions?
There are indeed. Right. So actually, I had a question for you, and I'll get to it in a sec. Should this load? Yes. So the engaging in one of these scams does require you to know how someone from a certain country would speak, for example, the country you would be impersonating from. And is it more frequent for these actors to be in the same region as their victims?
You know, in the cases that I can only speak obviously to the cases that I've worked, they generally claim to be in the same region, but I would say from victim to actor, no.
Okay.
Awesome. I also, I had a question myself. So on Instagram, there's often a lot of sugar daddy and sugar baby scams. Is this considered romance fraud as well?
Well, I guess it would depend on how that went down. I mean, I think that it could be considered romance if there's a theft of personal information or a theft of money of some sort without any, I mean, if you have a sugar daddy sending gifts over, that could be a whole different situation. But, you know, I think that it comes down to, is there lies being told in order to gain the finances or personal information of the victim?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. Nikos, any other questions?
I don't have any, and I have not seen one in chat. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Yes, there is another question, it looks like.
Aha,
It says, does internal teams work with brand protection organizations, or does the partner organization handle most of the work?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Sure, and I'll slow down too.
Okay.
Does internal teams work with brand protection organizations, or does the partner organization handle most of the work?
The internal team, we work directly with our brand protection company. We meet with them monthly to go over anything they see that they monitored for. We work direct, and then we work with them on takedowns when we're working our cases if there is any actionable items.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry that I speak so fast, by the way.
That's okay. I feel like I kind of speaking pretty fast too.
It's all the conference jitters. Everyone's got them, except for Nikos. He's just got the caffeine jitters from those 9 coffees he drank.
Guilty. Right. Well, unless someone else has questions, I think we can close it up.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Your presentation was fantastic. I've learned something new today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really fun and enjoyable.